Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
We are back in Laguna Beach, California in the I Own It studios with an incredible guest today. We are actually in studio with our guest, which is something I always love. He is an entrepreneur, a mentor, a speaker, an author, just a mind and body expert as well. And Steve Sims, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the I Own It show. I am so grateful that you actually drove down here from Los Angeles to spend time with us. So thank you.
Why wouldn't I?
Exactly. Let's get right into it. You brought with you your new book, Go for Stupid.
Yeah.
What does Go for Stupid mean?
For 25 plus years, I owned a concierge firm, which I openly say was my Trojan horse into getting to have conversations with the richest people in the planet. You know, to give you an idea, we had at our peak 93 clients, but most of them were billionaires. And I used to do things for people. And we always realized that if we gave someone what they asked for, you just completed a transaction. So we would get these billionaires come up to us and they go, hey, I'd like to meet the rock band Journey. Or I'd like a great dining experience in Florence. Or I'm going to get married. How can we do it? You know, something special. And we would literally sit around in the office. And this was like 15 years ago we started this. And we'd be like, right, okay, what's the stupidest thing we can come up with? And we would literally play with it. And we noticed a lot of people would say things like, yo, what's the most impossible thing we can do? Well, that's an oxymoron. You know, you've just stated it's impossible. You've just given yourself an excuse. So we actually made that word in the office the Voldemort. You couldn't say it. So we used to say, what's the stupidest thing we can do? What can we come up with that so many people will laugh about? So instead of getting someone to meet the rock band Journey, we actually put him up on stage, actually just down the road from here, San Diego. And he's now registered as the shortest-term lead singer of the rock band because he was live on concert during the San Diego concert. We had a couple that wanted the most amazing wedding. How about the Vatican with the Pope? And then we had the guy that wanted the dining experience in Florence. So we took over the Accademia de Galleria that houses Michelangelo's David. 9 o'clock at night, stood up a table of 6 at the feet of David. When he came in, he's enjoying his food. Halfway through the food, I said, look, got a local entertainer that would like to serenade you while you're on your main course. And I brought in Andrea Bocelli.
Wow.
So we always wanted to see how we could go for stupid. And we always had this statement, you know, what's the stupidest thing we could do? What could be laughed at here? And then something happened at the beginning of COVID that, quite frankly, pissed me off. At the beginning of COVID, everyone started getting really aggravated. And they were looking for something to stick their enthusiasm in. And there's nothing that I find people find more enthusiastic than tearing someone down. So as soon as we came into COVID, apart from the usual, oh, I can't communicate with anyone, oh, I can't get to the gym. Let's be blunt, the people that were moaning that they couldn't go to the gym, they weren't going to the gym before COVID.
Right.
So it became excuse central. And then two things actually came out of COVID which upset me. And as a father, we were talking about being a father earlier, actually terrified me. One of them was the cancel culture. And the other one was the gotcha society. We want to find you dressed up as a Chinese man at a 1987 fancy dress party. And for that, we're going to ruin your career. Or you said this in an interview in 2001. We're going to take that soundbite and we're going to ridicule you and see how we can drop you down a peg. And if you look at the news today, and I don't care if you like the president or you don't, but the news is never what he's saying. It's whether or not he trips on a step getting into a helicopter, or he fumbles, or he drops something. So much is going on. We don't want to pay attention to this. We want to laugh at it. And so I started doing memes and on my Instagrams and all these kind of socials. And I'm not known for being subtle. And so I started kind of knocking these little things out there and getting a bit angry. And people that knew me said, look, you know, there's some bite behind it. What's pissing you off? And I went, I don't like the way people are handling each other. You know, we're in a dark time. We should be supporting each other, not tearing them down. It just evolved. And then I started chatting to people. And, you know, I know some pretty powerful people. So, you know, I've had conversations with Elton John, Elon Musk. And I started saying, how do you handle these kind of things? And a good conversation I had with Elon Musk, he actually turned around to me one day and he said, you know, they'll always laugh at you just before they applaud.
That's right.
And I suddenly started looking at all the really powerful people I knew, and they saw it differently. They didn't care, or they looked at the person that was laughing and going, well, you couldn't afford me in any case. So why should I even hear you? So the book really focused on the gotcha society and more importantly, how to get over it. What I've done as a bricklayer from East London with the most powerful people in the planet, you too can. So it's all about really avoiding the gotcha society, avoiding cancel culture, and starting to focus on the right mindset for you to be able to go for stupid goals and then actually how to achieve them.
That's great. I could relate that to my career because I was really ridiculed when I was younger starting my business. And now people look at it and say, wow, look how wildly successful he is. And they put me on a pedestal. The same people. So it's
always the same.
It's human nature, I call it. Tell me about your obsession with motorcycles. And how many, the world wants to know how many you have now. I know you like Ducati and Harley. How many do you have now?
Think we're moving house, so there's a few in a workshop and the rest are at home. I have a few Harleys, I have some old British, I have some old Ducatis. I had a race bike that was a Ducati, just actually sold it. I now have an MV Augusta, never ridden one of those before. We've got a Triumph, a couple of Triumphs, so I think we've got like 8.
Wow.
But you know, the funny thing is, each one gives me a different experience. As soon as I get a bike that gives me the same experience as one of the other bikes I got, I'm not a collector of bikes, I'm a collector of experiences. So if I'm riding something like a 1975 Norton, you're doing 50 mile an hour and you're holding on. You can feel the rattle of the bike. You know, you've got full senses on alert. Yet when I'm riding the Ducati V4R around a racetrack and I'm dropping my knee at 180 mile an hour, completely different sensation. But they all carry the sensation which we all need today. I just get it through motorbikes, and that's a disconnect. You see, we're on a plane now, and we're watching a movie, and because planes have bloody Wi-Fi, and I hate that, you know, ping, you get an email. Now, the Wi-Fi is pretty crappy, so you can never download the attachment or anything, but people are contacting you. There's very few places in the planet now where you can actually disconnect. But I can drive out of my driveway, and I'm on a bike. I can't get you a coffee. I can't give you a lift anywhere. I can't respond to a text or an email. Literally, for that 30 minutes, I'm alone.
So you get to release from life, and no one can bother you. It's too dangerous to look at your phone.
Yeah.
You're not drinking anything.
Nope.
You're not responding. It's just you and the road.
Yeah.
And it's your piece. It's your time.
It's my moment, and
Yeah.
I've urged everyone to do it. Some people do it playing golf. I don't like the idea of golf because I've got 3 other people that I'm going to talk to.
Right.
You know? Some people do it by swimming, running. You know, there's all these different ways. But I urge you today, find your point of disconnect and use it. Because what tends to happen, and you hear this from joggers, the euphoria do you get into. 10 minutes into riding a bike, I can't hear the engine. I can feel it, but I can't hear it. But then what suddenly happens is your mind starts clearing out. And then when you get off the bike, it realigns again, but it self-prioritizes what's important. That's been very... Claire will often turn around at me and go, you know, you're not focusing, get out for a ride. And I'll come back and I'll be like, this is what we need to be focusing on first. So it's just it's my channel to be able to disconnect.
That's great. I use working out. That's my release. I plug
There you
in,
go.
and exactly what you're doing. I'm a big believer. I think it's so important to do.
How many people each night, before you go to bed, what do? You plug the phone in.
Right.
You recharge the phone.
Right.
Okay? We need to be recharged.
Right. That's a great point. In your view, okay, and through your experiences, you brought up experience. In your business, you mention emotions. You like to create the emotion that's important to you. That's really, you know, the reason why people go on vacations or they spend time in certain areas is to create memories, which is really what you were selling with Bluefish, is creating that emotional experience, creating the smile, you say.
Yeah.
The more smiles you have, the more money you're going to make. Yeah. How did that make you feel with all these different, the planning you did for all these events and the gratitude you could see from your clients? What was that like to, at the foot of David, and to be able to bring in Andre Bocelli or someone else, or to assist Elton John in a project he wanted? What was that like for you?
So you've got to understand it was an accident for me, okay? And when I say it was an accident, it was something that I tried to do, but I never cared about walking down the red carpet. I never believed I would do 90% of the stuff that I've done, And I find it hysterical that I have. But I always did it to get the attention of the person. Like, we got podcasts now. And I've often said that if we had podcasts in the 80s and 90s when I was doing this, I don't think I'd ever been who I was. But I did what they wanted me to do, so I had their attention, and I could then have a conversation with them about how do you build up? You know, how do you raise money? How do you look at relationships? How do you scale a company? So I was only doing this to get to that. But I always loved the challenge. And I always loved what people came at me about. And they were like, I'd really like to do this. I can't do this because, you know, oh my God, you know, that's impossible. I always loved it when people called it impossible, you know. But then it was always the kind of, how can I make this happen? And my wife has always said that I'm a 55-year-old, 5-year-old. I'm the curious kid that just goes, I wonder what the back of that remote control looks like. And we joke in my family, I've got the most amazing garage. I've got all the tools. I've got the bike lifts. You know, I've got all the pneumatic drills. I got everything you need for a full garage. And I'll pull an engine apart. And I'm really good at doing that. I'm not so good at putting it back together again. And I have what we joke in my family. I have a Tony. I have this guy who's brilliant, but I'll literally ride the bike on the trailer, take it over to him, then with a big box of parts and go, I don't know where it goes now. But it's that curiosity that keeps me making me do it. And I noticed that there was a trait between all the successful people that I ever worked with. They're curious. How can that work? Why is that there? Why is there a problem? You know, like Peter Diamandis say that before you put oil on a squeaky wheel, ask yourself, when was the last time you used a wheelbarrow? You know, and then secondly, why do you need a wheelbarrow? Elon Musk made a whole point of going, hey, rather than making a engine better, ask yourself, first of all, why do we need the engine? And it's that curiosity that has really caused me to do what I do. And then the gratitude of being able to pull off what other people couldn't. So it's the typical entrepreneur. And there's an old joke about how do you make an entrepreneur go bankrupt? You look at them and you go, I bet you couldn't do that for $10. Now, an entrepreneur will see the challenge rather than the $10.
That's right.
Peter Diamandis, the founder of the X Prize, he was the guy that came up with this. If you can do a space rocket, you know, make it orbit, back, refuel, and orbit again, you win $10 million. Okay? Burt Rutan from Scale Composites won it. And then Richard Branson bought Virgin Galactic off of him, and it's now going to be Galactic. But Burt Rutan openly said, I spent $120 million to win 10. And he was the winner. Think of all those other people that didn't win.
Right.
They still had to spend the same amount. So for me, it was the challenge. It was the euphoria of, okay, you want this. Let me see what I can give you. And that puts a dirty, great big smile up on my face. But then it also opens up your eyes, sadly, to how inadequate the planet is at trying.
Well, let's talk about that. So you're a young man, you're in Britain, you're a bricklayer, working construction, and you want to do something else. You want to expand your horizons. You want to do something more gratifying. What was the change? And what was it like? You know, one of the things you could teach is obviously persistence, believing in yourself, believing in where you want to go. What was that like when you were a bricklayer and you were younger and you said, I need to do something else? And what happened that triggered you to say, I'm going to do whatever it's possible to become who I am, develop this concierge service, and really thrive in life? Because that's a big moment in your life when you have to make that decision. You got to believe in yourself. You don't have a lot of money. There's risk involved. You're probably internally questioning yourself. How did you deal with it? And what happened?
So, Granddad happened. People say, oh, what happened in your life? I have always tried to work out the time, but I can tell you it's around 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was September, and I don't know the date, and I've always wanted to kind of really be able to find that date. Because when I say that it was a pivotal moment, there was a minute in my life where it changed. And so I was a bricklayer. I left school at the age of 15. My dad had this little bricklaying firm that consisted of my uncle, my cousins, and my granddad, who was in his early 80s. Now, my granddad was a mammoth of a man. My whole family are Irish, okay? My granddad was like 7 foot, 6 foot something. Huge wall of a man. I'm 6 foot, and I'm like 240 pound of ugly biker. My dad didn't kind of get that. So he's like 5'5" on a good day. All right. So we're at this building site, and I walk up onto the scaffolding, and I look down the lineup, and my dad's working next to him, my uncle, then my cousins, and then my granddad, and I saw every kind of generation. You know, my cousins were in their 20s and late teens. I'm like 16, 17 years old, so I could see it. I could see my lifeline. Ending with my granddad on a rainy London day on a building site, all hunched over, laying bricks, cigarette in his mouth. I thought, is that it? And my dad yelled at me because I froze watching this. And he was like, get on with it, we need this. Like, oh, yeah. So then, the bell goes and we all get into this and there was this caravan with the wheels pulled off that everyone would pile into to get warm and dry, drink a couple of cups of tea out your thermos before you went back on the site. And my granddad was right up by the fire. And so I squeezed through all these other wet bricklayers to get in front of my granddad, crouched down, nowhere for me to sit, crouched down, and I said to him, I can remember this word for word. I went, Granddad. And this is one of those lines where you're lucky you didn't get a smack in the mouth. But I looked at him and went, Granddad, did you think you'd be doing this at this age? He didn't even look at me. He just blew into his tea, and he just said, son, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow. That was it.
That's powerful.
The entire caravan went quiet. And I came out of caravan, run up to my dad. My dad was leading off. And my dad hated to be called Dad on the building site. Of course, I'm like pumped up now. I'm like, Dad. And he's like, shh, what do you want? I went, Dad, I was up there and I saw you and I went down, I went in the counter, I went up to Granddad and said, what do you, he said, if you don't quit today, you'll be meeting on a babbling like an idiot. And I went, he said, if you don't quit, you'll be meeting, I've got to quit. I have to quit. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I had to quit. Couldn't be him tomorrow. Couldn't risk it. And he looks at me, and as he did, my granddad walked behind me and stopped. Now, when my granddad walks behind you, you know he's behind you. It's like Hagrid. And my dad looked at me, looked up above my head at granddad, and then looked back down and went, we're short-handed, you quit Friday. I don't know what went through those two. I don't know what conversations ever happened after that. Never actually saw my granddad again because he died shortly after that. Mm-hmm. But the big fella up there probably causing a ruckus in one of the bars, I'm going to thank him when I get up there. He was the one that changed me. But now you used a lot of nice words like belief and persistency. I never had any of those. I had fear. Now, a lot of people use fear to stand still. My fear was that I was going to be there. And so my fear is never what holds me back. It's what moves me forward. Joe Polish said a brilliant line once, and I've always remembered it and always given it credit to him. And it was, the definition of hell is to meet the man or woman you could have been. And it's that fear that makes me go, hang on a minute, am I going to stay in LA? Or am I going to drive down here and do an interview? Am I going to go and meet that person for a business conversation? Or am I just going to lay out? My fear is that in 6 months' time, I'm in exactly the same place that I am today. And where I am today, hey, that's nice, but I want growth. I want experiences. I want failures. I want education. So it's not confidence, it's ignorance and being terrified of being exactly where you are today.
And I assume that had to drive you to that point. Who was your first client with Bluefish?
The first client actually was, let me explain how it got to that.
And let me add to that. How did you land your first client? Because remember, now you leave the business, the family business. And how did this all develop where you get your first client and then you're in the concierge business?
So I knew I had no money. So the last thing I wanted to do was sit in my pub and talk to poor folk because I knew what they were like because I was poor. Waste of a conversation, all right? So I knew I had to hang around with rich people. How do I do that? So I left the building career. I tried getting a job as a stockbroker, a yacht charter specialist, security, anything to get me around wealthy people. And I think the shortest I lasted was 2 hours. The longest I lasted was 2 days. So I didn't get anywhere. I was uncouth. I was raw. I was hungry. I was energetic. I looked like this. It was just wrong. I was always turning up on a motorbike. Rich people don't turn up on motorbikes. It was that kind of thing. So, it wasn't going well for me. I got the chance of a stockbroking trainee position in Hong Kong. I took it. Again, my fear was staying where I was. I've now got this chance. Hong Kong was what they had called the tiger market at the time. So I flew out there. I landed on the Saturday, got drunk with everyone on the Saturday night. Very qualified to do that. Did it again on Sunday. Went to orientation on Monday, and I was fired on Tuesday. So it was the shortest term career in stockbroking. And I thought to myself, my God, what the hell's going on? They gave me, the funny thing was, because they had brought me over there, they had to give me severance. So I got a paycheck and I got told I could stay in the apartment for a short period. But I never had a job. And my girlfriend at the time, Claire, who's now thankfully my wife, I've only lied to her twice. Once when I was in Hong Kong and I'd phone her up every Tuesday and tell her everything's great. And the second time was when I surprised her for her 50th birthday. But I would tell her everything was right and it wasn't. I was trying to find jobs, couldn't find anything. And one day I'm at this bar. Now, it's not the smartest decision, but it was my decision. I'm at this bar and I had this idea. I had $10 in my pocket. So my plan was I was on the patio of this bar. I'm going to drink myself stupid and then I'm going to leap over the edge of this patio and I'm going to run. You know, and if they catch up with me, it'll get colourful that night. You know, that was it. That was my plan for the night. I had reached that rock bottom. And this woman came over to me and she poked me on the shoulder. And I'm going to apologise to everyone Asian now, all right? But she came over and she went, your people inside, you get them out. And that's what she said to me. And I went, my people? What are you on about? And she said, you get your people out or we get them out and it will hurt them. And I was kind of like, who the hell's my people? And this was not the best bar in the world. So I walked through these curtains into the bar and there's these three guys. I think one of them was Scottish, you know, white British fellas, Larry, they're all tanked up. They're all kind of like manhandling the girls and stuff like that. It was Hong Kong, you know, in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I looked at them and I went, I have no idea who they are. They're not my people. She said, you get them out or we get them out. I said, girl, knock yourself out. And then she said something that did resonate with me. She said, you get them out and you can drink all you like. Now, I wasn't going to pay for this drink in any case, but I thought at least I can get drunk tonight and then tomorrow I'll go back to my plan. So I went over, sat down with the boys, said, look, you know, I know who I am, but I'm going to put it this way. You walk out the front door, you'll be all right, come back tomorrow and you'll get a free beer from me. Or you stay here, keep the mouth going, and a bunch of guys are going to run out of those curtains, hit you, and you ain't going to see Tuesday. I hope you make the smart choice. I'll be on the patio. Let me see which way you go. That was it. Went back to my beer. And they'd left a few days. So she came over to me and she went, you worked the door? And I was thinking, yeah, all right. You know, so I ended up working on the door. And then I started to notice people coming in. Here's a funny little follow-up to that story. The following day, the three guys came back, and I'm now working on the door. And I said to the lady, I said, oh, by the way, I told them if they left early, you know, we'd buy them a beer. She went, no, you said you'd buy them a beer. And I had to buy them a beer. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I had to buy them a beer. Here's the daft thing about entrepreneurs. We see things differently to the rest of the planet. Now, the couple of other meatheads that were on my door, they just wanted to kind of like get in as little scraps as possible, just survive the night, maybe catch a hot girl and go home. Me, I always look for where the benefit is. Classic Sean Stevenson. Was this done to me? Or was it done for me? Being a doorman, I suddenly got to see how people acted to each other, how people with money acted. And I remember looking in the door, something had happened and I was leaning up against the actual bar. And there was one of these booths, and there'd been these four guys that I had clocked, always coming in. They were all decent. They would come in early evening from work, and you know they were good lads, nice lads. And I got the idea they had a bit of money. And there was one of our girls that was running up to give them the drinks and stuff, and they had got a bunch of girls with them on this booth, and I was kind of a bit jealous. You know, good-looking lads. They had money. They had nice watches. I'd clocked all this stuff, and the girl went up there. And she put down the little wallet, and I always call it the tip flirt. Do you remember at the end of the meal where they give you and they've been like, it's lovely to see you. You got a lovely family. They ain't talked to you for the rest of the night, right? But they're giving you that little flirt, so you give them an extra bit of cash. So she went over and she did this, put the wallet down with the tab in it, and the guys weren't paying any attention to her at all. And she then just walks back. She'd left the tab there. And the guy saw it, looked back, saw her. She's walking towards me because the bar's behind me. And he comes at her. He's moving. And so, of course, I get flexed up thinking, you know, what's going on here? And he taps her so delicately on the shoulder, kind of like oh my God, like he's going to break an egg. It's like, excuse me. Kind of turns around and he went, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you put the tab down. He hadn't opened it up and he gave it back to her, still closed, put his Amex black card on. First time I'd ever seen a black card. Now I thought to myself, I work in a bar. I know that throwing a few extra drinks. The more drunk you get, that throwing a few more drinks on your tab, you're being screwed. But you didn't care. You didn't even read that. You were so wealthy, you didn't have to check the tab. Now this was at a point in time where I could go through a grocery store and I'm adding up every single thing going in that basket just so that my debit card will clear it. This guy didn't care. To me, that was wealth. So I made a point of getting to know these. And I was like, hey boys, you're having a good night, where are you going later? Any other clubs you're going to this week? Maybe I knew a doorman that could get them in, So I started doing that kind of thing. And then one day they came up to me and they said, hey, you going to the yacht party tonight? And Hong Kong is a very tiny island, loads of harbours. Yeah. And I went, probably, I don't know. Which one are you going to? I had no idea. And they went, oh, it's this one. And it was very, very close to where the club was, in an area called Wan Chai. And if anyone there turns around and goes, oh, I know Wan Chai, then you're a deviant. Because it was the dodgy, colourful area of Hong Kong at the time. And so I said to him, I don't know, I may be. I'll let you know later. And they go on into the club. So I said to the friend of mine, I said, cover the door. It was early evening. I said, cover the door. Just got to walk around the corner. It was only about 10, 15 minutes away to get to the harbour. So I walked down there, I took off my tie, so I just got a black suit on and a white shirt. And I walked down there and there's a yacht and it's all being done up, it's all being good. And there's a girl at the front, she's got this checklist. And I walk over to her and I said, hey, how you doing? My name's Steve Sims, we've never met before, but I got 4 guys coming tonight. And I think your party starts at 9, isn't that correct? And she doesn't want anything to do with me. And I said, I just wanted to know, did you want them to get here at like 8:30 so they're ahead of it? Or did you want them to come at 10 when the kind of like, the bottleneck's gone? Just wanted to think of that for you. Do you know, the first thing she started doing was flicking through but I hadn't given her any names. Everyone's got a reaction. Most reactions is just simply the word no. She started going through this. But if you notice my question, if you rewind this, I didn't ask if they could come. I asked what time would benefit you. So I then repeated, I said, look, I don't want to inconvenience you. Your head's on the party and you've got a lot to handle tonight. But I'm just trying to work out what would be better for you to even out that bottleneck a bit. She went, 8:30. To be honest with you, I can't remember what time she said. And I went, thank you so much. Hey, look, I've been where you are now and I know you're going to be throwing a brilliant party. So, and I went into my wallet and I had $400. I pulled $200 out and I just gave it to her. And I said, look, tomorrow night, grab yourself a takeaway and a bottle of wine and just be thankful you pulled off a killer party. I said, you know what these guys are like. They're going to turn up. They're going to get on the party. They're going to forget who put it together. But I know who did. Dwell and revel in it tomorrow night. And she went, thank you. And then I basically bet everything on black. I turned her away. I went to walk off. $200 down, and she didn't have the names or anything. It was a gamble. She went, well, hang on a minute. What are the guys' names? So I ran off the guys' names. And she wrote them on the front. And I said, is there someone that you want me to have them ask? And she said, yeah, when they get here, no matter what turn they get, they ask for, Amy. Thank you very much, Amy. Have a good night tonight. Try and hold it together. And I went back to the club. Walked up to the guys. And I was now terrified that when I get back to the club, they've left. So I walked in there and I went, boys, I've just made a phone call, pulled a few strings. I didn't even have a phone. And I said, and we can get you into the party tonight. You're going VIP and you're going to be going in as a guest of the person that's putting it on. You good with that? And they were like, yeah. And I went, good. That'll be $500 each. They jumped up and started throwing, and a few of them were going, I've got you covered, Larry, and started throwing. There was like about $3,000 down on the table from these 4 guys because they'd overpaid. And I picked it up. Now, I had $200 in my pocket and I had to pay back $1,000. When you ain't got any money, it's hurtful giving that money back. But I realised if they don't pay, they don't pay attention. They valued that so much. And I realised something that night. They weren't paying to get into the party. They were paying to save the humiliation of being declined. So that was my first ever client and my aha. And then I met up with them a little bit later and went, did you enjoy the party? They introduced me to another couple of people. I got them into clubs. This restaurant's fully booked this night. Let me see what I can do. Start doing that. I can do that. It'll be $600. It'll be $700. And it just escalated. And then the whole mentality, the curious kid was, How far can I take that? And I suddenly started getting people into your parties, and then I started throwing my own parties, and then I started working with other people's parties. And I went from shady nightclubs in Hong Kong to the Monaco Grand Prix with Ferrari, Cartier Stade, Palm Beach Cavallino Classic, the Grammys, the New York Fashion Week, the Paris Fashion Week. I just started seeing how far it could go, and then from there just looking in to see how they got their clients, and that's how it went. And then along the way, people didn't want just the party stuff, they wanted the experiences.
It's an interesting point you say, because the way you treated that woman for the yacht party is you showed her respect, you made her feel important, you valued her that no one else maybe did that she was working for, and you did things differently, which is like a typical entrepreneur. Did that show you that if I take that mentality is people want to be loved and respect. That's really what humans want at the end of the day. And so you were able to use that philosophy and carry it through to your business. It's brilliant.
How old are you?
I am 52.
So we remember a time that we didn't have Instagram to tell us how inadequate our lives were.
That's right.
And when we wanted to go out for a beer with our mates, we did two things. We knocked on the door, we phoned them up, okay? And we treated people like people. And I lived in East London, and if I said the wrong thing to the wrong person in a pub, then I knew about it, not because they put a dislike on my comments. I got a punch in the nose, or I got dragged outside the back. You learn things in that environment that we are greatly disrespecting now. I actually did a podcast a little while ago with Sammy the Bull Gravano, Gotti's hitman. And we had the entire conversation about respect. And it wasn't about violence, it was about respect. And that's what we're losing today. We see something on Instagram and we make a little sly comment about it and then we go about our day. We've just upset that person. And they can't do anything about it. They don't know who we are. They can't get to us and go, why are you being so nasty? But we're in that kind of flippant society. You post a picture up of someone doing something silly now, and you openly mock them, and then go out to dinner with your family, forgetting of what you just did to them. And I think the way that we communicate today not only is bad, it's getting worse. And from the invention of MySpace, Friendster, Facebook, it's changing the way we communicate. Well, I would actually go against that. It's not changing the way we communicate. It's offering two different ways. There's how we communicate, me and you, eye to eye. I say something that pisses you off. You're going to go, Steve, I don't really believe in that. And I go, well, why don't you believe in it? We have a conversation.
Sure.
There's the advertising, the banners. You say something, I say something. You say something. That's how it's being operated on social platforms today. So I think the way that we're doing it is getting terrible. But in order for us to thrive as entrepreneurs, we need to bring old school communication back. When someone emails you, here's a tactic. When someone emails you, and it's going to startle them, and this is daring for anyone listening to this, when someone emails you with a question, ignore it and phone them.
I think what's lost in our current society is the art of a conversation, the phone. People gravitate to texting and direct message me and this and that. I have a problem with it. And I'm sure at our age, we grew up with the phone. We grew up with a conversation. Hey, let's go meet and have a beer and talk about it. Those days are diminishing where people are like, just send me a text. Just tell me what. And I have that issue with my kids where I say, pick up the phone. I can solve something in a minute compared to a 20-minute text.
Yeah.
And I think the art of communication is lost. I think it benefits folks like us in business because human nature is so prevalent to make money.
Yeah.
And how to attract money and using your mind. And if you can't communicate by picking up the phone, because on a text and email, I don't know your emotion. I don't see your eyes. Mm-hmm. I don't see your physiology. So how do I know how Steve really feels when I'm communicating
exactly
with you? And that's the biggest disconnect I have. But I think what separates me, especially in commercial real estate, is I'll pick up the phone. I'll hit something head on. I'll have a conversation. And because of that, I might have shortened the window of an issue by 3 hours. And that could have a domino effect on something not happening. And I think people don't understand the magnitude of picking up the phone and having the conversation, looking someone in the eye and telling them how you feel, instead of using a text and saying, I didn't like that, or it's inappropriate, or this and that. Well, why is it? Do you know how I feel? Do you know what I'm saying? How is it being interpreted? So I think I agree with you. I think communication is an art that is really being separated and divided. I think it causes a lot of issues with, people talk about unity. Someone sends a tweet or someone does this. No one understands the context or what was really going on. You're not stepping into someone's shoes. And I always say, it's hard to analyze something when you don't know the shoes the person's wearing. At the end of the day, I think it's a huge point you made. I wanted to switch gears. I wanted to ask you, I think most successful business founders hit a point when they're really starting to see commercial success. They say to themselves, wow, I really got something here. It's no longer a vision in my head. Was there a particular moment for you with Bluefish when you knew, was it from the first client? Was it from Elton John when you said, you know what, I'm really good at this and I could really help people, give them those smiles that I want to? What was that moment?
7 years into my business and about 3 months before the downfall. One of the biggest reasons successful businesses go bankrupt is when they first realize they're successful. And then they go, oh my God, what do I do with this? And then that happens. So with me, my idea had always been, my concept had always been, look after you with whatever fancy thing you want, and then have a conversation with you to find out how you do it. And then eventually, this was my third step, get you to offer me a job. And so I would literally say to Claire, I'm doing this, I'm getting this person with Elton or with Guns N' Roses, and, he does really well. Then I'm going to, see if he wants someone to work with him. I'm going to show how good I am at making things happen. This guy's going to want to employ me. And I used to come back from literally, and we went from Hong Kong, Bangkok, and now I'm living in a penthouse in Geneva, Switzerland. So money's pretty good, Claire had a nice car. I, of course, had a Ducati. And everything's good. And I kept on going out for dinner or doing this or making this happen or traveling into London, traveling up to, Stade or Côte d'Azur or anything like that. And I would come back going, I think we're going to be all right because this guy. And I was always, this guy's going to be it. 7 years into me doing this, I got approached by one of the largest sponsors of the Ferrari Formula One team. And they said, we want you to look after some of the parties for the largest luxury brand in the planet on the 50th anniversary of the marquee itself. You can't get any bigger than that. And I said to Claire, once we've got over that, all of the people that we're going to be getting, once that's done, I'm going to get a real job. And she walked into the office and she laid all this paperwork down. She said, do you know what this is? I said, yes, the bank account. Have we got a problem? She said, no. She said, far from it. We've never missed a payment. Never. When you're an East London boy, missing a payment, that's a big deal. When you don't miss your payment, that's what you want. That's your definition of being rich, not missing your rent payment. She said, we live here. My car, your bike. You've got a job. She said, you've been so busy looking over there, trying to do something, thinking that something's going to happen over here. You're in it. You've got it. Look at your phone book. And it was Claire that actually pointed this out. And that's when it went wrong. I was supposed to look after a few events down in Monaco. And I was like, wow, I do have this job. And I do have all of these important people that I deal with. And I do all have all these luxury brands that pick up my phone when I call them. But it's me in a black t-shirt, earrings, tattoos, goatee. I got to change. I actually went out and I bought a Ferrari. I bought a 246 Dino. I didn't want to buy a new one. Bought a 246 Dino because I wanted to show myself I'm an aficionado. I'm a collector. I'm not new money. I remember buying a watch that was the price of my parents' car. And I thought, wow. I got this Audemars Piguet. And then I went to a tailor and I got these suits made. I tried to pull out all my earrings. I didn't have my ear piercing at the time, but I pulled out all my earrings and I went to the event. And there was one night I'm at this party and I'm on this yacht and I'm up against the bar. And this was 1997, 50th anniversary of Ferrari. I've got the two largest actors either side of me. We're sharing a joke at this bar. I had Terminator Arnie and I had Rambo Stallone. Two biggest movie stars of the time, either side of me. and someone took a photograph. I had loads of photographs taken during this party, and I get back to Geneva, and it was at that time where you took the roll of film. This would be for the old people. Youngsters, there was a roll of film in the back of those cameras back then. I'd pull out these film, you shove it in an envelope, you send it off. Sometime in the next 3 years, you get your pictures back, So these pictures turned up. Claire came into the office. She said, here's your picture. And so I sat down, and I'm like, this is me in Monaco. This is my moment. Bought a shot of whiskey. I'm in my office. This was a big ceremony. I opened it up and I started to pull out all of these pictures. And I got to that picture. And there was one picture of me leaning up against this Ferrari, doing my best Don Johnson, pulling up the sleeve slightly on my suit. You remember those times?
Yeah, that was the 80s.
Yeah.
Was it white?
It wasn't. No, I hadn't gone that far.
All right.
It wasn't Miami. And then there was this picture of me with these two. And it suddenly hit me. I wasn't in any of these pictures. This persona, this facade, this fake was. I had been rolling up to the richest people in the planet on a motorbike, throwing a crash helmet down, saying, get the bourbon out. Right, what are we going to do? And I'd thrown all of that weight out the window to try and be this stiff. And it upset me. I actually got very badly drunk for about 3 days running. I could not believe I had sold out. I had had so much imposter syndrome that I never turned up. And even today, we say in our family, that was the wildest, craziest party that I didn't go to. This prick did, but I didn't. So as a successful entrepreneur, that moment of, this is good, I've got it, can often lead to the worst part of your journey.
So you learn not being your authentic self can cause issues.
Massive.
And I see that you had a saying, I think it was, on a Saturday, a kid wearing a 3-piece suit, he's not wealthy.
Yeah.
And there's a difference when you're wealthy and you don't have to prove yourself.
Yes.
You have enough confidence. You don't have to wear watches. I don't wear a watch, even though it would be interesting to be on the Rolex circuit because you can make money buying them and selling them. But at the end of the day, I think there's a difference that, when you're younger, you're trying to prove yourself, building that house of cards. And I think if you could be your authentic self, I always teach, I think at the end of the day, people will gravitate to you more, which probably was a big staple in your business, that you were authentic, that all these celebrities and stars said, he's just a real person and he just knows how to get it done.
Yeah, I made people's decision easy. I have a word with authentic, and I have a problem with the word authentic, and I have a problem with the word confidence. Because a lot of people go, I'm not confident. If you failed in your life and become educated by it, then that's confidence. Are you doing what you can do based on experience? You ain't got to worry about people want experience and they want education, and education comes from when shit goes wrong. And regarding authenticity, I made your decision as to whether or not you wanted to deal with me really easy. I'm stood in front of you, I'm telling an inappropriate joke. Is that okay for you? Yeah, great, let's carry on. If not, move on, we'll be fine. But I never, ever, ever allowed for fences. I never allowed for those people to turn around and go, I don't know what he's trying to get at. Is he deep? No. This is it. I made it. And today, with COVID providing so much noise, politics, Me Too, so much has gone on. I'm surprised the aliens haven't landed, because we've got wars, we've got politics, we've got so much going on that there's so much noise that in today's world, the one thing we want, we desire so badly is clarity and simplicity. And joking aside, that's why the retro brands have done so well during the last 5 years. Look at the Bronco. The Ford Bronco sold out so fast. Not because it was the peak of performance and sustainability, but it harkened back to a simpler time. The Challenger, the Charger, the Mustang, the Rolex, these retro brands, Levi, they are so in demand today because they trigger us back to what we feel was a simpler time of clarity and ease.
So many of your clients are looking for unique experiences, okay? And are there some that were particularly memorable for you as you pulled a rabbit out of a hat to make it happen? What are some crazy things that you saw that you actually made happen that maybe you were doubting? You're like, I can't get Guns N' Roses at the Coliseum playing in front. Like, what happened that you could look back and say, my God, I can't believe I did that?
Pretty much most of them. Mm-hmm. But there was one that we actually hinted at earlier, was that I'd been challenged to get an amazing dining experience in Florence. And we did that, okay, what's the stupidest thing we can do? Now think about it. If you're in France, where's the most ridiculous place to have a meal? Eiffel Tower. If you're in England, I don't know, Buckingham Palace. If you're in New York, Statue of Liberty. So what is Florence is one of them. Now the trouble with Florence, and I love Florence, so much Renaissance art that could easily be confused with Paris, Amsterdam, Poland. So we had to find something that could only be Florence and Fiorenza. David is only in one place, Florence. So that was my go for stupid idea. When I approached them, and they said yes to me, and then that was on the Monday. I'd been challenged on the Sunday, and I was in Rome at the time. And so I went down by train on the Monday, went through this go stupid for stupid idea, knew someone that knew someone that knew someone, and so I got the meeting that Monday afternoon. The dinner was supposed to be on the Wednesday night. By Monday evening, I had a contract for the Accademia de Galleria to shut down and to give me the entire museum. And I was like, I had the entire Tuesday to myself. It's usually not good for an entrepreneur, because we've now got, what do we do now? So I'm sitting there over breakfast going, well, I've got the museum. They've got catering, so they've got the chef, they've got this, they've got... So that's when I reached out to some people that I knew in Hollywood, reached out to people in London, who reached out to people and I got a call with Andrea Bocelli. So when he said yes as well, I was like, great. So then we turned up on the Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. The clients weren't turning up until 9 o'clock that evening. And I believe that no one successful ever grew up. They just covered it really well. So I never have, and I don't cover it very well. So I always like to see what can I do. And Andrea turned up at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and he's walking around with obviously he's blind, so he's walking around with Veronica, his wife, or his son at the time, and they're changing around. He's literally walking around the bottom of David, playing with his vocals, trying to find out whether there's not too much reverb. And we're here in a studio, okay? A marble museum is not the best for sound quality. So he's trying to find the best place for this to happen. We're bringing in carpets and all these different things. And I'm just sat on the edge of the plinth, on the edge of David. And there's a plinth that goes all the way around David for you to be able to sit and just absorb this magnificent statue. And anyone that's been there will know that plinth that I'm talking about. So Andrea comes over. He's been led over by his son. And he's in the middle of me. So there's me, Andrea Bocelli, and Veronica Bocelli, his wife. And Veronica speaks very good English. Andrea's not too bad. My Italian, shit. So we're sitting there, and Andrea Bocelli just starts warbling. And he stood and does this. So I sit there, and all of a sudden I go, and he does it again, and then I do it again. So he says something to Veronica in Italian, and she leans over and looks at me, and she says, what are you doing? I said, I thought we were having a duet. I said, when am I going to get the chance to ever have a duet with Andrea Bocelli again at the feet of Michelangelo's David? So she says this to him in Italian. He laughs, puts his hand on my leg and goes, stop. And it was that moment that I was having this humour, and then all of a sudden, my body went through a massive cold sweat that was so powerful, I thought I didn't know if it was a heart palpitation. I didn't know what happened, but all of a sudden I went, whew, and he still had his hand on my leg. And he said, okay. He felt it, but it literally was that kind of shock. And she said, are you okay? And I said, it suddenly hit me where I am, what I'm doing, and who I'm with. And because as entrepreneurs, we go at such speed, we don't often pull over and smell the roses. And it was that moment that I'd now got to such a relaxed state. I'm now joking with Andrea Bocelli, the second most famous man in Italy after the Pope. And I've got the table in a museum. It was my Thomas Crown moment. I had taken over this entire... No one else, me. So yeah, there's quite a lot of times where it does hit me. But that was the most memorable.
It sounds like you learned to be present and not worry about the past, not worry about the future. Enjoy the moment. Understand what you've accomplished. And really, it sounds like Claire not maybe directly said it to you, but laid the foundation saying, enjoy in the moment where you're at. Don't worry about the future. Shine in the moment.
She's my true north. She's the guiding star. She's the one that has to kind of like handle this beast. And as an entrepreneur, there's a reason that divorce is massive in entrepreneurs. Okay, because we are dysfunctional misfits.
We sure are.
And we're out there to disrupt, and 9 times out of 10 fuck things up. But if we get it right, whoa. We get it.
We really get it right.
We really get it right. Sadly,
absolutely.
most of the time we get it wrong. So, yeah, she's been my guiding star on that. And she does every now pull me back and go, hang on, just, enjoy this moment and, relish in it. I did that for like 25 years. Still do it a little bit now. But now my challenge is to get other entrepreneurs, and that's where I do all the training and the speaking and the coaching. I want to get other entrepreneurs out of the way of their own misconceptions, negativities, and glass ceilings. And I often say that if a bricklayer from London can have the cell phone to the Vatican, you're already out of excuses.
Oh, your story is inspirational, and your work ethic is second to none. In addition to Bluefish, your concierge business, you have a very strong personal brand. You're a coach, you're a speaker, you're a mentor, author, podcast. Am I missing anything? I mean, it's crazy.
Dysfunctional alcoholic.
Well, we're all dysfunctional in our own ways. How do you approach building your personal brand, and what do you see your brand standing for?
Wow, never been asked that, but my initial gut reaction answer would be clarity. I'm there to help others and probably alienate others. There's a way that I do things that wants to make the solution I offer crystal clear to the problem you have. Now, if I can do that, and we have Sims.media, it's a media company I founded with Henry, we literally focus on clarity is king. Brevity. What do you do? Do I need it? Then I'll pay for it. If you can be that raw, then you can be in business. My personal brand, where it actually goes off to, is if it excites and slightly terrifies me, that's what I'm going to do more of. And I like challenging people. And here's the thing. We're in our 50s now. We're sitting here in Laguna Beach in a beautiful studio. Life ain't bad. We are full of first world problems. Shall I buy Rolexes? Shall I? That's the depth of our issues.
I call them high-class problems.
We have loads of high-class problems. And so in which case, now I focus on impact. And what can I disrupt to get other people to think differently? That's what's challenging me. I only take speaking gigs where it's the audience I want to disrupt, to walk out of the room and just do something different. I want to challenge people to reframe how they handle fear. Don't stop when you're scared of something. Use that to attack you, I'm doing that now. So my brand is one of clarity. You've just got to answer yourself, is it clarity to a problem you have?
So it's providing certainty and also being uncomfortable so you can grow. So certainty and growth.
All about being uncomfortable.
Fantastic.
You probably heard I go to prison a lot. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so when I started doing more of this, because a lot of people, when they go up on stage, they get. Do you speak on stages?
Not yet. That's forthcoming.
Right. A lot of people get scared about it. Now, my first thing I'm going to warn you about is be thankful that you're scared, because that makes you alive, and you're only scared of something you're going to commit to. When you meet people that are not scared about getting on stage, that's the time they shouldn't be on stage. So I wanted to challenge myself about getting more uncomfortable. So I actually go to prison 3 times a year, and I train inmates on how to revive their hustle into productive communities when they leave. And it's a very uncomfortable place to be. But if I can handle myself there for a day, sitting here doing your podcast in Laguna Beach, it's a breeze.
Walk in the park.
Yeah, so I'm a great believer that to get comfortable with being uncomfortable is going to be your super strength.
One of the things I love that you say is, if you're the smartest in the room, leave. And I adhere to that. I just absolutely love that saying. Explain what's behind that. I understand what's behind it, but explain to our audience, why do you say that?
I don't think it's too hard to grasp. I remember sitting in the room in London in a biker bar and looking around this bar full of meathead broke bikers, and then suddenly realising that I was part of it. And when you're in a great room, great things happen. And again, this was all in the 80s and 90s, where we didn't have access to YouTube and all other social mediums to both invigorate and aggravate us. But I realised I was in the wrong room. And so when I'd be in a room and I'd suddenly realize, okay, I'm the best one here for media and branding. I'm the best one here for training people how to speak. I'm the best author in this room. Got to get into a new room. Again, it's that definition of hell. You know, I want to be the person. I want to be the person that I'm going to meet. Now, I want to be that person. I've always had this dream. It's a really silly little dream. But I've always had my vision of death. You know? They say your life flashes before you when you die. I want mine to be so jam-packed there's an intermission for popcorn. You know? And when I do make it up to the pearly gates, I want St. Peter to pull me over to a bar, drop me an old-fashioned and go, well, you had some fun, didn't you? That's my definition of death.
I like that. That's great. You've been critical of many self-styled motivational gurus. And I'm the same way. I agree with you on this point. I've certainly seen myself, some people who use too many full buzzwords and are not exactly walking the walk in terms of living their advice. I see that a lot on social media. I don't see authenticity. I don't see honesty, integrity. How do you look at the self-help industry, and where do you see yourself fitting into it?
Oh, that last bit hurt. I see the self-help industry self-helping themselves first. The downside about being an East London boy is I've got a mouth on me. So if it's going to piss me off, I'm going to call it out. And I'm very vocal about doing that, which has alienated me to a lot of the, quite simply, very, very affluent gurus in the industry. And there's been stages that I've avoided to be on because that person has bought their way onto stage and is going to be on there. So I believe that today, I've got nothing against you making money. As I said before, if you don't pay, you don't pay attention. So I'm very happy about people using it to help their life. But there comes a point, and it needs to be very early on, is what impact are you doing and whose bank account is it impacting more? I strive to impact people to think differently. I charge them well for it because I want you to bleed. I want you to be in pain because then you'll do something about it. Mm-hmm. But I'll often say, you get nothing out of this. Just email me, text me, I'll wire back. I don't want a conversation. It goes back. I want you to be uncomfortable to do this, but then I want you to be so uncomfortable, you're going to do something about it. I'm very aggravated at the world of monetizing of the self-help. And I'll tell you a funny story I had. I was down in Beverly Hills, and I was down by I forget the hotel now with an M. And they always make you park your bikes right down to the bottom. They don't want bikes up on top. I told you, rich people don't ride motorcycles. If you tell, Brad Pitt that, he may disagree with you. But Jean-Paul Lejoya, there's a whole bunch of them that do ride very well. But I had parked my bike all the way down at the bottom. In the bottom was where the residents were allowed to park some of their cars. And over in the far corner was this bright, it was like lime green, almost glowing like the Hulk in the corner. And I wasn't parked anywhere near it, but I could just see it there. I never had a cover on. I don't know what it was, a McLaren, a Lamborghini, something like that. And I went off and I forgot why I was in Beverly Hills, but then I came back to my bike. And as I'm there, there's a couple of guys leaning up against his car, someone with a light rig and a camera filming them. And I could just make out some of the words, but I could totally make out the gesture. It was all kind of like, this car, basically like, if you want this car, you need to join my course. It's $9.99. This whole thing was going on, and I'm watching this. And my next moment, I don't live with a lot of regret, but I regret the following moment. Because I was watching this, and I was thinking, there's another self-help video that's going to be out in the next month, and some poor shit's going to think that they know it, and they're going to buy that course. And as I'm looking at it with disdain, this guy comes out of a lift and screams. Big Armenian fella. I wouldn't have wanted to have played with him. And I remember the following words that will stick with me for the rest of my life. Get the fuck off my car. And he's legging it towards them. And these two have just kind of and just wrapping everything up, out the side door, hurling off. That guy went through this stairwell door to chase him up the stairs. And my regret was that I wasn't recording it. The regret was not that I couldn't record it. I couldn't see. I was crying so much. It was so funny and pitiful of the environment that we're in. And a mutual friend of ours, Roland Fraser, every now and then that guy's got so many nice cars. And every now and then I'll just lean up against one of Roland's cars going, could be mine, maybe mine. And then Roland would just reply, it's not. But I'll do those kind of things. But it's sad now. And again, this is another one of the reasons, behind the book. We're in a visual society. I've already said that we like to point, stare and laugh, but you're not credible unless you're on Instagram leaning up against a car you don't own. How many people do we know? And Burbank, if anyone out there wants this, in Burbank, you can rent planes that are not going to take off, but you could do your little video series on there about, whoa, look at my plane. And the other thing that I've always noticed is that a friend of mine told me this one. He said, no one that actually owns a plane's ever taken a selfie on. I got on a plane the other week. I don't know what it was. I think it was Southwest. And I was on there with Henry. And it was an economy flight to, I think, Arizona or something like that. Something had happened and we had to jump over there. So we took this picture. We're right at the back of the plane. We took this picture of us, this Southwest plane going, what a private jet with 166 of our closest friends. Just something stupid like that. But it's amazing how on one side we mock it, but on the other side we revere it.
We want it, yeah.
And the desperation to have it gets us sucking into buying it. Now, the self-help industry is powerful, and we all have coaches. I have 3 coaches. I'm racing on Monday, and I've got a racing coach. I've always got different coaches because I want to be a better version of me. But I always check the source of where I'm getting the information from. So whoever's actually got the need and the pain, check the source of where you're getting the information out before you proceed.
It's a great point because really where you're going to is a lot of people will impose their values on you.
Yeah.
For decisions or knowledge. Decipher, where am I getting the information? What are their values? And are they putting on me? That's why people always say your parents F you up.
Yeah.
Because they're imposing their values on their kids. And it might not be what are their kids eventually going to be their highest values. And that's where the chaos is created. You've had a lot of success across multiple businesses in your career. Do you have any big goals in the next few years with what you're doing?
Yeah. I want to disrupt more people. I want people to think differently. I want people to act differently. When you're about to stare and laugh at someone, I want you to think, well, hang on a minute, can I quiz and challenge and support them instead? We've talked about this, and there's a pair of old boys on couches here, talking about it. But I want to support people. I want to challenge them to be better. And that's what I want. That's my big go for stupid goal.
So you have a speakeasy event coming up. I love speakeasies. I'm from Chicago. In Chicago, we have these hidden speakeasies. One of my favorite lines, I used to go to one, is you scream, I scream, we all scream for ice cream.
Yeah.
And then they would open the door.
Yep.
And some guy would slide it open, and you'd walk in, and I remember it was like velvet and red and lights and great bar and just smoking hot women and just coming out of anywhere. What is your speakeasy event, and what's the purpose of it? And tell us a little bit about it. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so my speakeasy was a challenge to my credibility. We all go to an event, and we go to the event because it starts at 9 o'clock, it finishes at 5 o'clock. This person's speaking, this is the topic. You know everything. Before you've got there, you know everything, and you're basing your decision on that. Well, a lot of us, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if the guy next to us is the guy that can actually answer our question, or he's just a great speaker, okay? So I started a speakeasy, and I thought to myself, would people come to my event, pay me $2,000 and know nothing? And so the way that we work it is we run a speakeasy in different cities, around America. We're in Hollywood next. And we tell you, it's in Hollywood on these 2 dates, and this is how much. And then the next step is the important one. Once you've registered, we contact you and we go, what's your problem today that's getting you held back? Mm-hmm. And we want to find out your problem. Then what we do is we look at our roster of speakers and my Rolodex. My Rolodex is pretty cool. And then I bring people in to answer your problem. So rather than going to an event because it may inspire you, you're coming to my event because it's going to solve you.
So you're using your concierge background to make things happen to solve someone's problem.
I'm reverse engineering what I think should we call mastermind should be. I'm not focusing on whose stage who's on stage. I'm focusing on the problems in the room and solving those problems by bringing my friends in who are industry experts and very colourful themselves to answer your problem. And around that, I'm going to throw a little bit of experience in there that you may not have got up to. I never hold them in conference rooms, hotel rooms, anything like that. I've held them in the Gigafactory in Reno. I've held them in the Bunny Ranch brothel. I've held them in music studios and film studios. I always hold them in weird, creative environments.
Can it be personal and business? I mean, is it any problem that someone can address and you could bring in the resource?
If you don't have a problem that I can answer, I let you know that and we refund you. But more importantly, I've not refunded anyone because we can't solve the problem. I have refunded people because they're not the right fit in the room. See, a classic doorman. I can fight you, but I don't want to. So if I make sure that I let the right people through the front door, then I alleviate 99% of the problems that would be inside. If I let anyone in, then at some point in the night, I'm going to be dancing with you on the floor and it's going to get ugly. So if I focus on my mastermind, making sure that it's the right people in the room, again, make it a great room, great things happen.
When you're tackling these problems, is it out in the open in front of everyone at the event? Or
I don't declare who has the problem.
Or is it confident? Oh, you are solving it in front of everyone,
Yes.
and that person knows, they're like, he's talking about me.
Well, do you know the funny thing is, for a start, we never allow more than 40 people to attend. You ask 40 people what their problems are, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 of the same. So everyone's got the same problem. And that first problem may be, how to get more clients.
Right.
The second problem may be how to scale. The third problem may be how to do their finances. How to brand identify, how to get to speak on stage, how to get connected with the wealthiest clients in the planet rather than the ones that get in. Now, you may not have one of those problems. You may not have all of those problems. But by learning about those, you'll alleviate the problem for the next time.
Or you can correlate someone's problem and say, I kind of have that problem. It's just worded different.
Yeah.
And I can use what Steve's teaching in the room or that resource and carry it over to my issue.
Yes.
I love that. That's fantastic.
And this one's quite a little bit more special because the final night, we're having the launch party for Go for Stupid, the book. So this one we're actually colouring in a little bit of a big party for as well.
Can anyone go? How do you get in?
No, you've got to either have been invited by me or you've got to attend the speakeasy to be able to go to the party. I tell you, I protect my door. That's my biggest thing. My asset is who's inside my door.
What's the relationship like? Any great stories with them? There are a lot of Elton John fans that are listening. Any insight you could share on him? He's obviously a dynamic, wildly successful pioneer in what he does, and you've had the pleasure to work with him as well.
8 years. He's colourful. He's direct. He's accurate. He actually cares with a very rough, direct approach. Doesn't pull punches. And that I've really, really admired about him. One of the things I really admire about him is I don't think he's ever read his own media. He doesn't buy into that kind of hype. He wants to basically be a value to everyone that's in front of him. So I've always admired that direct approach to him and his interactions. And there's not a lot of people around that, and there's certainly not a lot of people in Hollywood that's as charismatic and as iconic. There's not a lot of icons left. Elton is one of those icons.
It's amazing how he's been able to come back and work with other artists that are really popular now and integrate himself into this new generation.
Do you know the funny thing is, just to reframe that statement, he's not come back, he's never left.
Right.
You see, here's the funny thing, and I never knew this about him until he informed me. There's never been a year that he hasn't toured. There's never been a year that he hasn't had hits. So he's been able to... He's never come back. He's never left. So now that he's on his farewell tour, God bless the man. Go and have a cup of tea and chill.
That's fantastic. So we're going to wrap it up. And we always ask our guests 3 questions. Normally I have a couch right here. But because you're in studio, we had to reconfigure it. And I'm very grateful you're here. You are such a wealth of knowledge. And I'm so grateful you're here with me. So if I had you on the couch and I said, Steve, close your eyes. I want the 55-year-old Steve Sims who's going to talk to his 16-year-old self. What advice would you give your 16-year-old self now being in the position you are and what you've learned and the vast knowledge
That's
you have?
dead easy. Stay off the shit whiskey.
Okay.
Why would we be so rude to remove the knowledge that we gain from the mistakes we make, why would we go back and remove that power from the person? We become empowered. We become experienced, educated from the things that we do wrong. And I know, as me looking at my 16-year-old, I know you're going to get your head kicked in about a week's time, but that's going to teach you how to communicate with people. I know you're going to get involved with the wrong person. That's going to teach you how to get involved with the right person. So I'd just go back there and try and save my kidneys a bit and go, stay off the bottom shelf whiskey, top shelf only.
Hear, hear. It's your last day on earth. God forbid. You and I are sitting down. We're having a meal. It's your choice. Steve, what are we eating?
Oh, dear. Well, it would obviously be complemented with some good old fashions, with some decent bourbon. But if you're going to go out in style, I'd probably have a British breakfast.
Okay. What is your typical British breakfast?
Sausages, bacon, beans, eggs, and mushrooms.
Oh, that's a high cholesterol. Well, I guess.
Well, look, I'm on my last day. Who cares?
Exactly.
In fact, I'll probably order 2.
So we're in our Ionit studios, and if you could have any musician or band, deceased, living, sit here with us and play us a song, who is it?
Wow. Thankfully, I've got to hang around with so many, but I would probably sit here and ask Jimmy to teach me a riff.
Wow. That would be fantastic.
Wouldn't it be?
I think he'd blow out the windows.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Steve Sims, my friend, thank you for coming down.
It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. If you are interested in following more and getting more great content and following the I Own It podcast, hit that subscribe button on the lower hand side of your screen. If you're interested in following me, go to benreinberg.com. If you're interested in commercial real estate, go to alliancecgc.com. Learn about commercial real estate, learn about what's upcoming in our business, and how to invest in our brand new Alliance Medical Property Fund. What's the best way for people to follow you, Steve?
Well, the sharpest way would be to buy the new book, Go for Stupid. But I'm at Steve D. Sims everywhere. D for Dashing, 1M in Sims. Instagram, Twitter.com, whatever you like. Throw in Steve D. Sims, and that's me.
This is a man who owns it. And I encourage you to go on his website, follow him, learn more about him, and you'll see why we brought him on the show so you can own it too. Thanks again, Steve.
Been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.